Alright, in our last video we talked about deoxygenated blood. So this is blood coming from the body, making its way to the lungs so that it can get oxygen because it was without oxygen. I used blue to represent deoxygenated blood, but please recall from our previous activity that blood is never blue. It's dark red or light red. It just has to do with the way light reflects off of our skin. So we still use blue versus red representatively, but it's not actually the color of the blood. Okay, so it might help you if you kind of shade all of this kind of like a blue color so you remember that that's deoxygenated blood. And then we're going to use red right now to represent oxygenated blood. Okay, so it has oxygen. So you should think, okay, well then it must be starting in the lungs, right? And when we talk about lungs, we're using the term pulmonary. Okay, so these guys right here, these four, that is called the pulmonary something. Pulmonary artery or pulmonary vein? Which one is it? So let's look back at our definitions. Arteries move blood away from the heart. Veins move blood towards the heart. So this must be a pulmonary vein. Okay. So I'm trying to have you guys, and the same on this side. I'll write that in just in case. These are pulmonary veins. So it's easier instead of just memorizing your way through things because you're never going to remember it when you see it again. And if you are planning on going into health fields, you will see this again. You want to kind of just make sense of it. Okay? So this was the pulmonary artery because it was moving blood away. Pulmonary vein is going to be moving blood towards the heart. Here's another situation where you can't see what's going on behind the heart. Okay? But both of these are going behind the heart into this same chamber. Okay, just like my vena cava went to this atrium. Okay, so the place where we always start is once it goes into the heart through a vein, we're going to end up in an atrium. It always starts with the atrium. So this is the place where we receive blood. So this must be the left atrium. Okay, so the blood came from back behind, it went into this chamber, or from here into this chamber. Okay, so once we go to the atrium, we need to make our way to our ventricle. And just a reminder, the reason why this is called the left and that was the right is because remember this is a body laying on a table. Their right and left is going to be opposite of yours. Okay, in the anatomical position. So we want to make sure that blood is just going in one direction here. So we're going to need a valve again. Okay, so I'm going to draw in a valve right here. And I told you guys in the last video that we've got try before you buy. Okay, because we always think of the deoxygenated blood comes into the heart, gets its oxygen from the lungs, and then now we're moving on to the second step, which is pumping it to the rest of the body. So try before you buy. So you did our tricuspid on the deoxygenated, and in this oxygenated part, this is going to be the bicuspid valve. Okay, bicuspid valve. Now, there's another name for this. Actually, there's a couple other names. But the other one that I need you to know, we also call it the mitral valve. Mitral. M-I-T-R-A-L. Mitral valve. Okay. So make sure you know those. And we're going to make our way out to the rest of the body. So you can see that we need to go through another valve. And the second valve in each path of blood is always the easy one. Like this one was going to the lungs, it was the pulmonary valve. This one is going to the aorta, which you guys are probably familiar with. The aorta. It's this big structure on the top. This is where we get the blood out to the body. Okay. So this valve is conveniently named the aortic valve. aortic valve. Okay. So we went from the lungs, so pulmonary, and then vein means towards the heart, into the left atrium, through the bicuspid or mitral valve, through the left ventricle, and now we need another valve to make sure blood doesn't move back. Oh, and I wanted to point out, you may have heard of a mitral valve prolapse. That's where we have an issue with this valve. Okay, and then since we're moving to the aorta, we're going to go through the aortic valve out to the body. And I'll go ahead and I'll highlight those structures in another color this time, or you could just color the sides of the heart red versus blue. I can actually pull up a picture of that for you. Okay. So the way that would look. Okay, you can kind of see what parts to shade in different colors if you look on Google Images. So there's an example right there. Okay, I just typed in path of blood. Well, what I'm going to have you guys do now, and again, since we can't walk the big giant chalk hearts outside or work them on the table, you guys are going to have to practice it a little differently. So you're going to be able to pause this video and practice tracing the path of blood for oxygenated blood. So you'll be saying, okay, I'm going to move in through the pulmonary vein, into the left atrium, through the bicuspid or mitral valve, to the left ventricle, and so on. So you can start by using your notes while you're saying it over and over again until you can stop using your notes. So what I do is if I get stuck, like I'm trying to use it without my notes, I bring my notes back, do it a few times with the notes, then try to ditch the notes and make sure that you can do it without. Because again, you're not going to have enough time on your test if you don't have this somewhat memorized.